name of Allah, the most beneficent and the most merciful. Assalamu alaikum, this is Uswa Fayaz under the roll number 84045. I'm going to present on a topic about Plasmon driven ultrafast photonic PCR. Let's start it. So here is the list of contents I'm going to describe in the slides. I will talk about the introduction, ultrafast photonic PCR, and the nanomaterials that are involved in the ultrafast photonic PCR, as well as the main thing, the plasmon-driven ultrafast PCR, which type of nanomaterials are involved in it, and at the end I will conclude about the difference between the traditional PCR and plasmon PCR. So here is the introduction. Nucleic acid detection with the high sensitivity and specificity has found widespread application in biomedical fields, such as infectious disease diagnosis, food safety control, and environmental monitoring. Fast diagnostics have become increasingly sought due to demands from the point-of-care testing and the growing number of tests in hospital or by third parties. PCR has become a routine method for nucleic acid detection since it was invented in 1983 by Caribou Mullis. In traditional PCR, repeated thermocycling with 2 or 3 discrete temperatures is required to amplify the nucleic acids. To this end, commercial PCR equipment generally uses a metal heating block as the heating unit, which has a limited thermocycling rate. Although many improvements have been implemented to reduce the thermocycling rate in the commercial PCR, it still requires a long amplification time on the order of hours. Thus, ultrafast PCR is desirable to accelerate the widespread application of the nucleic acid detection. So here is ultrafast photonic PCR. In ultrafast photonic PCR, various technologies have been developed to improve the thermocycling rate. Actually, this is the problem that we was facing in the traditional PCR. Its thermocycling rate was so slow that it can amplify anything in a very slow rate, but in case of ultrafast, the rate has increased, and that we will see in later slides. So what improvement did they do? Such as photonic thermocycling, microwave-mediated thermocycling, resistor-based thermocycling, and convection thermocycling. Among these, photonic thermocycling method based on the photothermal effects of specific nanomaterials such as gold nanoparticles, and they have attracted the particular attention due to its non-contact energy conversion. So how the photothermal nanomaterials improve the thermocycling rate? They improve the thermocycling rate for 3 main reasons. The one is that there is a greater contact area between heat source and solution, resulting in the volumetric heating. Second is the introduction of nanomaterial with the excellent thermal conductivity decreases the heat capacity of the whole solution and enhances the heat transfer. And the third is the photothermal nanomaterial improves the utilization efficiency of the incident light, thus faster heating and cooling ramps compared with the conventional PCR can be obtained in photonic PCR. So here is the photothermal effect of nanomaterial, that is actually the basic development in the traditional PCR that changed it to the ultrafast photonic PCR. So let's see what is this. The photothermal effect of nanomaterial mainly depends on their strong absorption of light with different specific wavelengths to convert the photon energy to thermal energy through the non-radiative relaxation pathways. And that will be shown later in the next slide in a figure 1. But before that, we have to complete this. Receiving the same energy, photothermal nanomaterial conducts strong non-reductive relaxation with the weak radiative relaxation. That includes both fluorescence and phosphorescence. Currently, At least four classes of nanomaterial have been reported with the photothermal effects, including the organic nanoparticles, magnetic nanoparticles, carbon-based nanoparticles, and the fourth one that is of metallic nanoparticles. I did not describe that here, but that is also included here. On the diagram that I just discussed in the previous slide, so here the diagram is showing the ground state, excited state, and the vapor state. And here they are showing the non-radiative relaxation, how the photons are absorbed and electrons are excited and move from the ground state to the excited state, and the different nanoparticles which have been used. So actually this figure is showing the conversion process from photon to radiative and non-radiative relaxation in the representative photothermal nanomaterial. Okay. So let's talk about the nanoparticles one by one. So the first is magnetic nanoparticles. The magnetic nanoparticles have the basic mechanism of magnetism to heat conversion, and it has been widely studied in the nowadays therapies, which is achieved through the repeated alignments of magnetic spins and physical rotation under alternative magnetic fields. However, the photothermal mechanism of magnetic nanoparticles has been not explained clearly. Some studies reported that clustered magnetic nanoparticles display higher photothermal conversion efficiency than individual magnetic nanoparticles. Let's have a look on the organic nanoparticles. Basically, the organic nanoparticles generally conduct the photothermal conversion by absorbing the photons to reach excited singlet states and then decay to the ground state via non-reductive relaxation or by emitting a photon. Non-radiative relaxation produces heat and photon emission produces the fluorescence. Organic nanoparticles with the photothermal effects mainly include nanoparticles that incorporate the organic photothermal molecules, such as the cyanine-incorporated nanoparticles, dictopyrrole incorporated nanoparticles, and croconane-incorporated nanoparticles, and organic semiconductors such as polydopamine, among others. So let's have a look on the carbon-based nanomaterial. The carbon-based nanomaterial have an abundance of active electrons that led to a high electronic conductivity and thermal conductivity. And this thing has a very prominent importance in our daily life actually, because the carbon have great property of the electronic conductivity and thermal conductivity, and basically this property will be used in the our ultrafast photonic PCR. So when the photons irradiate the surface of carbon nanomaterials, the electrons are excited by absorbing the photon energy, producing heat by electron-photon coupling in the lattice. So this is the main mechanism that is involved. Okay, so here is the main thing that we have to study and we have to conclude after all the above background that we just discussed, because all that nanomaterials have been used in the ultra-fast photonic PCR. But here is the plasmon driven ultra-fast photonic PCR. Actually, the plasmon driven ultra-fast photonic PCR is basically the PCR that use the metallic or nanoparticles for their mechanism actually. So let's have a look. What is this? Also, the commercialized thermocyclers use a Peltier block to heat the PCR solution in the plastic tube, and they often lead to the heterogeneous temperature field and prolonged reaction time. To address these issues, a plasmon-driven ultrafast photonic PCR technology has been proposed, which utilizes the photothermal effect of the metallic nanomaterials to heat the PCR solution under irradiation of the incident light. Here, the metallic nanoparticles play the role of energy converter from the light energy to thermal energy. So this is the main thing that has been used in the plasmon-driven PCR, and that makes it unique from the other ultra-fast photonic PCR as well as the traditional PCR. The photothermal nanomaterials are highly efficient converter of energy from light to heat, and their large surface to volume ratio and uniform dispersibility enable the fast thermocycling rate of photonic PCR. So, here is the mechanism that is involved behind the plasmon-driven ultrafast PCR. As you can see here, there are two tubes. One is with non-contact heating and other one is with the volumetric heating. In the non-contact heating, the photothermal effect of the metallic nanomaterials enables them to be powered by the incident light without contact with the heat source. While in case of volumetric heating, homodispersed metallic nanomaterial enable the heating to be evenly dispersed within the solution. So overall, the image is showing as the incident light is able to directly penetrate the plastic tube, non-contact heating with the high heat transfer efficiency can be achieved. Moreover, the metallic nanoparticles are uniformly dispersed in the PCR solution, leading to the volumetric heating from inside the PCR solution. Actually, in case of plasmon-driven ultrafast PCR, the work that is showing here, the non-contact heating and volumetric heating, they are just combined to give a better result. That will be shown in the later slides. But the thing that is showing here, that one there is a non-contact heating and in the other there is volumetric heating. But in case of there, when we just discuss it clearly, a single flask have to both function. Okay, there will be the both function in the single tube. With the tube will have the non-contact heating as well as the volumetric heating, and that will give the better result. Let's have a look on the photothermal effect of metallic nanomaterial, and this is the main mechanism that is involved in the photonic ultrafast PCR. As we have already read that the metallic nanomaterials are basically used in the plasmon-driven ultrafast photonic PCR. How it works? Let's see. The photothermal effect of metallic nanomaterial has attracted abundant attention, and the photothermal effect of metallic material is produced based on their surface plasmon resonance. There are two major surface plasmon resonance phenomena that are oftenly used. One is propagating SPR. SPR is basically the surface plasmon resonance, and second is the localized SPR. How the SPR occur? SPR occur on the surface of planar thin metal film, where the charge oscillations are propagated under excitation of a light with the specific wavelength. The electromagnetic field of the SPPs exponentially decreases within 200 nanometer from the metal surface. Here, in our complete description, the photothermal effect of metal film depends on the photon-electron Phonon coupling at the thin film, usually an pore thin. If I talk in detail, the incident photons can activate the electrons on the surface of metal film and excite them to high states to become hot electrons with a temperature of several thousand degrees Kelvin, benefiting from the high thermal conductivity. The heat of these hot electrons can rapidly diffuse to the whole metal film, leading to an equilibrium and uniform temperature field. A huge temperature gap is created between the metal film with the surrounding environment, and corresponding heat transfer also begins to occur. Next, besides the intrinsic properties that I just talked about, there are the properties of SPPs that are related to the thickness of metal film, where the optical absorbance, basically in the blue light zone, increases with increasing the film thickness due to plasmonic electron resonance of metal materials. LSPR occur on the surface of nanostructure. LSPR, I just talked about it. It is actually the localized surface propagating resonance. It occurs on the surface of nanostructures, for example, nanoparticles, nanowires, or nanoholes, where confined oscillation is conducted under excitation of the incident light with a similar or shorter wavelength. The electromagnetic field of LSPRs is concentrated on the interface of the nanostructure and decreases significantly 10 nanometer away from the metal surface. Here, the photothermal effect of nanostructures similarly depends on the coupling between the dense surface electrons and the electromagnetic waves. This coupling causes the conductivity electrons to perform faster oscillation and more collisions, producing the significant Joule heating. The photothermal conversion efficiency is mainly determined by the shapes and size of the plasmonic nanostructures. So, here is the comparison between the traditional PCR and plasmon-driven ultrafast photonic PCR. The traditional PCR and ultrafast photonic PCR, they are doing their same work, but the difference is only in their cycle time. Actually, the main thing was to increase their thermocycling time. And as you can see here below in the graph, there is a huge difference in their cycle time as in the case of ultrafast photonic PCR, the cycle time is actually so fast. In similar words, I can say that the denaturation, annealing, and extension, they are occurring very fastly. So here I can say that there is a photon-electron phonon coupling that is occurring here in the photonic PCR system. As we are applying a laser that is actually a non-contact heating along with the volumetric heating, as I told you before. So this thing causes the ultrafast photonic PCR to increase, to fasten its amplification rate.
Now we will discuss the advantages of plasmon-driven PCR. First is the 10 to 100 folds. The heating rate of traditional PCR can be achieved by ultra-fast photonic PCR, which can accomplish 30 thermocycles within several minutes. The temperature in the ultra-fast photonic PCR process can be easily controlled by the incident light intensity and the properties of concentration of mono nanoparticles. And third one is the ultra-fast photonic PCR is compatible with the various light wavelength by adjusting the shape, size and dielectric environment of MNs. मतलब कि हम PCR इस PCR के अंदर ना हम डिफरेंट वेवलेंथ के लाइट्स को यूज़ कर सकते हैं. मतलब स्पेसिफिक नहीं है हम एक यूज़ करेंगे, हम डिफरेंट वेवलेंथ के लाइट्स को यूज़ करते हैं, उसको अपने इन्वायरमेंट के अकॉर्डिंग उसकी शेप, साइज़ वगैरह को चेंज कर सकते हैं. और आगे है कि homodiseparate mono nanoparticles in the PCR solution produce a volumetric heating which facilitates a uniform temperature field and high heating rate. homodiseparate मोनो नैनो पार्टिकल्स एक्चुअली ये होते हैं कि छोटे छोटे ड्रॉपलेट्स की फॉर्म के अंदर हम पूरे PCR सॉल्यूशन के अंदर जो है इसके नैनो पार्टिकल्स को डिस्ट्रीब्यूट कर देते हैं. मतलब कि पूरे मतलब सॉल्यूशन के अंदर जो है वो इक्वली डिस्ट्रीब्यूट हो जाता है हीटिंग. ठीक है, और ये जो है इसका बेनिफिट है. आगे फिफ्थ वन इज़ है कि plasmon driven heating enables a PCR solution isolated with the energy donors which performs a nano contact heating. The nano contact heating significantly decrease the time and energy consumed during the heat transfer. हम plasmon driven PCR में जब यूज़ करते हैं सॉल्यूशन की आइसोलेशन के लिए तो उस वक्त एनर्जी प्रोड्यूस होती है. वो जो एनर्जी प्रोड्यूस होती है वो एक्चुअली हमारे सॉल्यूशन को हीट अप कर देती है. इस वजह से ये ज़्यादा प्रोसेस टाइम कंज्यूमिंग नहीं है. जो हमने डीनेचुरेशन का प्रोसेस करना होता है उसके लिए जो हमें हीट प्रोड्यूस करवानी होती है तो इसके प्रोसेस के थ्रू जो है हम वो करवा सकते हैं. इसलिए हमारा जो टाइम भी कंज्यूम नहीं होता और जो हमें ज़्यादा बेटर रिजल्ट्स मिलते हैं. नाउ वी विल डिस्कस द चैलेंजेस ऑफ द प्लाज्मन ड्राइवन PCR. First, the plasmon driven heating assists in improvement to heating rate while its benefit to cooling rate is unobvious. यानी कि इसके हम लिमिटेशंस को डिस्कस कर रहे हैं कि कूलिंग रेट के लिए इसका अभी तो कोई बेनिफिट नहीं है, ये हीटिंग रेट के लिए बेस्ट है. सेकंड है कि currently the MN still need a complicated coating to decrease the absorption of biomolecule and maintain the dispersed state under high temperature. Absorption of nucleic acid and polymerase 2 amines may inhibit the amplification efficiency of PCR. ये इसकी लिमिटेशन है। और फोर्थ वन क्या है कि surface plasmon resonance wavelength of amines may overlap with the emission of organic dyes in the PCR, which may limit the application of plasmon driven ultrafast photonic PCRs in the fluorescent quantitative PCRs. इसके ये जो हैं इसकी लिमिटेशंस हैं. Now we will discuss the conclusion. Recently, the booming development of emerging ultrafast photonic PCR shows its potential and next generation PCR technology. ये जो PCR ट्रेडिशनल PCR की निस्बत ये जो बेस्ट PCR है अब तक, because we achieve the ultrafast thermal cycling from 55 degree Celsius to 95 degree Celsius within 5 minutes for 30 cycles with the ultrafast heating and cooling rate. हम इस PCR के थ्रू अपने जो है कम टाइम के अंदर अपने ज़्यादा हम थर्मोसाइक्लिक जो प्रोसेस है उनको करवा सकते हैं, यानी कि हम सिर्फ 30 साइकिल्स को 5 मिनट्स के अंदर अचीव कर सकते हैं. ये ज़्यादा फास्ट है, इसलिए हम इसको अल्ट्रा फास्ट फोटोनिक PCR बोलते हैं. आगे इसका और किस्म, और ये जो प्रोसेस है बहुत सिंपल है इस और लो कॉस्ट है PCR जो है. और इसके अलावा ये आइडियल है फॉर द मॉलिक्यूलर डायग्नोस्टिक के लिए, और PCR टेक्निक कैन मीट द शॉर्ट क्राइटेरिया. और इस PCR के क्या क्या फ़ायदे हैं? एक तो ये अफोर्डेबल है, दूसरा कि इसके अंदर जो है ये स्मॉल साइज़ के अंदर कॉम्पैक्ट एंड द लाइट PCR सिस्टम विदाउट अ हीटिंग ब्लॉक. देन सिंपल स्टेप विद द डिस्पोजेबल PCR चिप्स. इसकी जो चिप्स हैं वो डिस्पोजेबल हैं, रैपिड एंड रोबस्ट है, इक्विपमेंट फ्री है, ड्यूरेबल है. ये सारा जो इक्विपमेंट है फोटोनिक PCR का ये बहुत ज़्यादा अफोर्डेबल है, और इस क्वालिटी की वजह से हम इसको ज़्यादा यूज़ करते हैं. फ्यूचर डायरेक्शन. बेस्ड ऑन द रिपोर्टेड मेथड एंड एग्जिस्टिंग चैलेंजेस वी एडवोकेट 3 प्रॉमिसिंग रिसर्च डायरेक्शन. साइंटिस्ट जो हैं इस PCR के प्रोसेस को ज़्यादा इम्प्रूव करने के लिए 3 तरह की डेवलपमेंट्स फ्यूचर के अंदर मतलब उसकी तरफ बढ़ रहे हैं. फर्स्ट क्या है कि डायरेक्शन towards the development of alternative photothermal नैनो पार्टिकल. मोस्टली हम नैनो पार्टिकल्स गोल्ड के, सिल्वर के, कॉपर के ये यूज़ करते हैं. अब जो हैं डेवलपिंग न्यू मटेरियल एग्जिस्टिंग photothermal नैनो पार्टिकल सच एज द polydopamine and organic photothermal agents can also be introduced into the photonic PCR. PDA and Ps have strong absorption in whole visible light range and excellent biocompatibility. Thus, this class of material is good alternative to the photonic PCR may be used for in vivo application. अब तक जो हम इस PCR में हैं वो गोल्ड, सिल्वर, कॉपर इनके नैनो पार्टिकल्स को यूज़ करते हैं, लेकिन इसके जो अल्टरनेटिव के तौर पे साइंटिस्ट कहते हैं हम पॉलीडोपामाइन NPs को भी यूज़ कर सकते हैं, क्योंकि इनकी एब्जॉर्प्शन कैपेसिटी बहुत ज़्यादा है विजिबल रेंज के अंदर, और इनकी बायोकम्पैटिबिलिटी बेस्ट है, इसलिए हम इनको एज अ अल्टरनेटिव यूज़ कर सकते हैं गोल्ड, सिल्वर नैनो पार्टिकल्स के. सेकेंड डायरेक्शन है कि डायरेक्शन टुवर्ड डेवलपिंग न्यू मेथड टू इम्प्रूव द हीटिंग एंड कूलिंग रेट्स, कि हम इस PCR के अंदर और ज़्यादा बेस्ट कूलिंग और हीटिंग रेट को किस तरह से अचीव कर सकते हैं. इसके लिए क्या है, टू अचीव दिस 2 स्ट्रेटजीज कैन बी कंसीडर. फर्स्ट इज़ द इंटीग्रेटिंग फोटोनिक PCR विद माइक्रोफ्लूडिक चिप्स. हम इसके अंदर अल्टरनेटिव के तौर पर माइक्रोफ्लूडिक चिप्स यूज़ करते हैं. दीज माइक्रोफ्लूडिक चिप्स एक्सेल एट मैनिपुलेटिंग लिक्विड फ्लो विच कैन स्प्लिट द PCR सोल्यूशन इनटू 1000 ऑफ ड्रॉपलेट्स विच नैनो एंड द पिकोमीटर वॉल्यूम्स. मतलब कि होमो डिस्पर्स कर सकते हैं पूरे, जो हमने इसकी एडवांटेजेस में पढ़ा था. हम जो है ना सोल्यूशन को छोटे छोटे चिप्स की फॉर्म में ऑल ओवर द सोल्यूशन डिस्पर्स कर देंगे, इसलिए हर जो पोर्शन है PCR सोल्यूशन का वो इक्वली हीटअप होगा और इक्वली जो है उसकी कूलिंग होगी. ठीक है. एंड सच स्मॉल वॉल्यूम स्केल ड्रॉपलेट कैन बी क्विकली हीटेड एंड कूल्ड. द थर्मोसाइक्लिंग could be more than 4 times than the normal PCR with the microliter volume. ये जो मेथड है इसके ज़रिए हम 4 टाइम्स बेटर हीटिंग और कूलिंग रेट्स को अचीव कर सकते हैं. And third one is a direction toward development of all-in-one integrated device. The final direction is to develop all-in-one integrated device based on the photothermal material should use contain extraction, amplification, and detection capabilities for the nucleic acid. This all-in-one device would be attractive for the POCT. POCT is actually the molecular testing. It stands for the point of care testing that actually the doctors use to know the immediate condition of their patients, and we could perform the sensitive nucleic acid detection on the site for the infectious disease diagnosis and bioterrorism agent detection. And photothermal effect of the gold nanoparticles could be used for the cell lysis, and ferric oxide and dopamine could be used to extract the target nucleic acid from the prokaryotic and the eukaryotic cell. This was all about the plasmon driven PCR. Here are some of the references, and thank you so much.